Right, hi guys. Thanks very much for joining us today. As you can see on the screen, my name is Ray Adams. I'm a chartered financial planner and I founded CashCalc a few years ago. This is what we're going to talk about today, and instead of just a normal written agenda, as you can probably gather from what myself and my team have done at CashCalc over the years, I like to explain things in pretty pictures and pretty colors and pretty graphs. So actually there doesn't need to be any writing underneath anything, and hopefully you get the gist of what we're going to talk through today. Historically, when CashCalc was first launched, we were a cash flow planning tool. That's the cash in CashCalc, and the calc was calculators. And what I wanted to build was a suite of tools which helped you and me, because I'm an advisor the same as the majority of you listening in today. I wanted to help you and me work more efficiently and better engage the client. And as we developed the product, it became apparent to me that what we needed to look at was how we initially engage and onboard the client. Because that's the bit I love. I love chatting to clients. I love doing fact finds. I love finding out about different people and from different walks of life. And I love finding out their aspirations and goals for the future. But I, like most financial advisors, probably then are not brilliant at writing everything down that the client has said to me. We tend to write down in the fact find what we think is needed for that particular case, whereas our brains normally know a lot more than we've written down. And I think that's just a human nature. And I'm sure the FCA find that whenever they go and investigate a firm which has done things wrong, the feedback is generally there was insufficient information in the fact find. So what I want to look at today is about how we onboard that client and go through the fact finding process. But as you know, at the same time as the fact finding process, we have to look at the second item on there, which is disclosure documents, and whether we want to get the client to digitally sign that document or something else. We've got to go through AML with the clients before we even think about getting to the fact find. I'm going to touch on, looking at an attitude to risk questionnaire, and maybe even just touch on open banking, a little bee in my bonnet I've got about authority letters. I think that in this country, getting authority for clients to talk to providers is broken. And I think we've just accepted it. We just accept that we've got to go through this archaic process of getting wet signatures and posting them by snail mail. Sometimes you can email them, and 3 providers out there insist you still fax them. It's crazy. So we're trying to do a little bit about that. And then I'm going to come on to some real meaty things about document exchange and secure messaging with your client. And we'll talk about the free app that we've built within CashCalc. So what I'm going to look at first of all is the initial invite to a client. So let's just think of several examples. If I look at the top left-hand corner here, you have the option of adding the client from a back office. So you could have had a long-standing client. You're now going to go into maybe doing some financial planning for them using software tool, or you just want to say, actually, I've got lots of paper fact finds for this client over the years. I've got it up to date, but I want the client to give me an up-to-date view. So what you can do is you can link CashCalc with your back office system, and we link with most of them. We've got Time for Advice as the example here, but we do link with most of them. So you could initially do a link, just bring the name and address across, or if you've already got lots of data in your back office, bring it all across. So you can bring all the data and pre-populate the fact find. Or if it's literally a brand new client, let's use the example of a client has rang you as a referral and said, look, I've been recommended to use you by your brother, by my brother. He's an existing client of yours. I want to consolidate my 3 pensions. Can I book an appointment with you? And that would be a typical inbound call from a new client. So historically, what I would have done, and I guess most of you, is we'd have a brief chat with the client to see whether they were the right client for us and we were the right firm for them. And then I'd book an appointment to either go and see them at their home, place of work, or if we were super efficient, we'd get them into our office, save a bit of traveling time. But actually what we can do with CashCalc is just take their name in that brief conversation, their date of birth, their email address, and their mobile phone number. And we can say to them, look, before we book an appointment, why don't I send you a secure link? You can click on that link on your tablet or on your laptop. I'll send you a PIN number to your mobile phone. So you've got two forms of security and safety. Put that PIN number in, and you can go in, and ahead of our meeting, you can write down basic information about you. So the hard facts, as I call them, your name, date of birth, where you live, do you have a mortgage? Do you have a pension? And just give us basic information ahead of the meeting. The great news is that makes you look at your data before. It makes me look at the data before. And then when we get together, instead of us being together historically for 2 to 2.5 hours, we can probably get the whole meeting done in an hour or less. Because then we can talk about what's really important to you, because we've already captured all of the hard facts. And we can then chat about what you want to do with your life and what you want to do with your money. So it's a much more efficient way of doing it. I'd like to think it keeps our fees as keen as possible, because you've saved us a bit of time and you are doing some of the work for us, which is fantastic. So you can get the client to onboard themselves. If you look on the right-hand side of the screen, we actually have an option within CashCalc where you can get the client to completely self-onboard. And what does that mean? If you go into the settings of CashCalc, and there's videos of this available, you can just click onto CashCalc TV. You can actually switch on the self-onboard option, create a link, and you can put that link on your website behind a Contact Us button. So, for example, at my IFA firm niche in South Wales, if you go to the Contact Us page, it's all white and black writing, but there's a big pink button saying become a client. So that's the call to action, and that draws their eye. When they press that button, they actually see what you can see on the right hand of the screen, where it says ABC Financial Services. It says my company's name. It says niche, and the client can go in and put their details in. So if you think of that referral from an existing client, they recommended their brother to use you. In that situation, that brother could have gone in, looked at your website, thought, actually, I like this, I'll become a client straight away. And if you think clients won't use it, they definitely will. When I switched it on at Niche, we didn't get anything the first day, but the second day, within 48 hours, we had a 58-year-old new client, 56-year-old wife, £280,000 of investable pensions, full fact find done, and lots of notes made. It does work. And currently, as I speak to you now, nationally, we're having about 300 clients a month self-on board like that for various CashCalc users. So about 3,600 clients a year are doing it all by themselves. So let's just assume that you've chatted to the client, you've done the invite, you've taken their email address, and what you can see in the top left of this, there's a little blue radio button says email via CashCalc. So we pre-populate the email for you, and all you've got to do is click next, send. But actually, you can see that you don't have to use CashCalc send an email. There's an option that you can override that and say, no, I want to send the link myself. So just give me the link and I'll paste it into an email I want to type. And I might physically type the email myself because I use a specific font for my emails and certain colors, and I've got certain footers. So you can do whatever you want, guys. So we're not forcing you to do it our way. We're just saying, do it this way, it's efficient. Do it that way if you want. Of course, two-factor authentication is vitally important. So you've got the two-step verification. Why is that important? So if you've sent an email to the client and it's landed on their laptop or on their iPad or other mobile device, and that is stolen, I suppose somebody could, if they could get into the mobile device, they could click on the link and immediately go and see the data that the client's put in. And that's obviously unacceptable. So hopefully the client's got their own security to get into their device. But we can add to that by saying, even if somebody clicked on the link, they then need to put a PIN number in, which has been text to a different device. So you've got two-factor authentication. Bottom left, you can see what information you want to share with the client. And in this example, all 5 little areas have gone green ticks. But you could, if you want to do, just take a fact find, and all the client sees is fact find. Again, at my IFA firm, we always send the fact find and we tick disclosure documents. So the first thing the client does is sees our disclosure documents, which actually is within a welcome brochure, and they can then look and agree that, digitally sign and accept that, and then they go in and do the fact find there afterwards. But if you've had a good conversation with the client on the phone, you could send them a custom link, which could be to a video of how to do certain things. You could send them an attitude to risk questionnaire, ESG, and you can do AML up all before you initially meet them. It's up to you guys, you control it. So let's assume the client has now clicked on the link. This is where the two-factor authentication comes in, which I explained to you earlier. And the client creates their own password. So we're not saying, here's your password, but you can change it. At that point, they've already got two-factor authentication to get to there. They can create their own password. It's only a small point for me, but can you see below the password box, we tell them what is an acceptable password for security purposes. And as they add that, like a capital letter and a symbol or a number, it ungrays it and makes it black so clients can see that they're putting a secure password in. So it's not a case of they type a password and the screen says that's no good and they have to start again. We work with the client. If you can see on the bottom right hand of this page, guys, there's a little pink flash which says client view. As I go through this presentation, I'm going to be showing you pages that you see, and then when you take action, what the client sees. And every time you see client view is obviously the bit that you've sent to the client. So the client has put their PIN number in, they've created their own password, and they've landed in their portal. And if you can see under the word client in the top left-hand corner, there's a logo saying ABC, Financial Services. That's where it's your portal with your company branding on there. We're just powering it for you. So the client has clicked on an email from you with your branding and clicked onto your portal you've created for the client. And as you can see, it says, "Good afternoon, John." And in the next sentence, which I won't read out, but it uses the word secure twice. The email we've sent them automatically contains the word secure 3 times. I'm obsessed with security, and we constantly say secure all the time. So as you can see, there's the fact find option, there's identity checks and ATR, and whatever you've selected by those green ticks previously will appear here. So again, you could just, if you don't want to frighten all clients off, you could just get the basic information and just get them to do a little bit of work and work with you. So what we're going to do now is we've got the client there. So let's do the KYC of the client, which and the fact find. So what you can see on the left-hand side of the page here is that within CashCalc, we've built what I call a standard fact find. And a lot of that came from me and from my team for what we wanted in a fact find. But of course, we've been running CashCalc since 2014. And over the years, we've got loads of feedback from clients. And we've added that into our standard fact find. And if you want to count those blue buttons, there's less than a dozen of them. So there's less than a dozen standard pages of our fact find. So if any of you are sitting there thinking, I've sent clients fact finds in the past and they haven't filled them in. If I was able to sit with you one-to-one and say, what did you do? I hazard a guess that many of you say, well, I emailed them either a PDF or an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document. And if you emailed them a PDF, I'd then say, where did you get it from? Oh, I downloaded it from my back office. Well, there is a back office out there with a 58-page PDF. Now, if you're emailing a client a 58-page PDF and saying, can you fill this fact find in ahead of the meeting? They ain't going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Even if you say to me, well, page 2 and page 3 is not relevant, Ray, because they're just previous addresses if they haven't lived at the current one less than 3 years. Well, if it's not relevant, don't send it to the client. It's fairly simple to me. So what we do on CashCalc, we ram it all the way down because we assume they have lived in the address for less than 3 years. And if when we get to the address page, we discover they haven't, bang, we then create another page saying previous address, please. So I've said to you, we've got a standard fact find. Those blue toggle buttons mean you can switch them on and off. So again, if you don't want to frighten clients off, you could just say, I'm only going to have the top 5 sections and send them to the client because I want to discuss the other things themselves. Like objectives at the end, you might say, no, I want to discuss them with them. So you can toggle on and off any of the sections. On the right-hand side of the page you're looking at, it says add tailored questions. So we built the functionality that you can either use the core fact find and add 1 or 2 questions on one of the pages or 2 of the pages, or you can add entire pages of your own questions. So if you want to ask lots of ESG questions, you're not happy with the ESG questionnaires out there, you can just create your own ESG questionnaire and insert it as one of the pages. Easy, guys. So you can do as much or as little as you want. We've got some users in Ireland that do lots of protection in life and critical illness, and they've created an entire fact find of just all the questions which they know are on the life insurance applications for the various providers in Ireland. So when they do that, they just send this secure portal link to the client and say, can you fill in this document? Okay, so we're on client view again here now. The client has actually clicked on it and said, I'm now going to do the fact find. And as you can see on the left-hand side, there's all of those sections which we'd left toggled. So the client is on each one of those sections. So the client is now starting to put their address in. Okay, so why have I done a page about address and postcode? If any of you listening in today have ever gone onto a website and had to type the full address in and not do a postcode lookup, if you're anything like me, you've got annoyed, because I get annoyed. And I think, why are you making me type my whole address here? Because this is going to take me 30, 40 seconds. Well, if you just ask me my postcode, you can do a postcode lookup. So being on that website annoys me because they've not thought of me as the user. So what we don't want to do with your clients is annoy them on your behalf. Because don't forget, the client has clicked on your secure portal and they're doing your fact find now. So we don't want to annoy your clients. So the first thing we need to do is say, well, look, we're not going to make them type the address. We'll do a postcode lookup. But if you notice, there's a question before that. What's the ownership status here? And the drop down is you own it with a mortgage, own it without a mortgage. I live with parents, I rent or other. So in this case, the client has selected own with a mortgage. We then do the postcode lookup, and as you can see then, the address appears because there's normally about 15 addresses for a postcode lookup. As we select that, you can see at the bottom, it says when they moved in. And in this case, it was in June 2008. How do we know that? We've done an instantaneous lookup with Land Registry. So we've used Fetchify, which is a company which powers the postcode lookup for us. Why am I even mentioning Fetchify? They did 500,000 postcode lookups for us last year, and we pay them 100 quid a month for the whole company. So this is not an expensive thing to not annoy your clients, guys. So we've now done a postcode lookup as well, and we've filled in the next section. So actually, your client, as they're coming down, think, it's already filled in. How do they know I lived here since June 2008? Well, actually, we do even more than that, guys. Because they've selected they own this with a mortgage, well, the house is an asset. Now, on that paper fact find you send out, or even the Excel spreadsheet or the Word doc, the client has to fill in the same details again on page 5 and 6 because they're an asset and a liability as well. But of course, within CashCalc, this is dynamic and pre-populating. So because it's filled in on the front page and they've said they own it with a mortgage, we've already pre-filled in that it's an asset. And of course, because it's an asset, and we've done on the right-hand side, the API with Land Registry, we know the acquisition date and the acquisition cost. And you can see on the left-hand side now, we've done another API with a Zoopla-like company where we brought in the current value for those 15 postcodes. Now, okay, I know that's not always super accurate because they could have a massive house in a range of some small houses, and the client can edit that, but it's going to give an indication. And we didn't use Zoopla because they wanted £2,500 a month plus VAT, and property data for the same information wanted 35 quid plus VAT, 42 quid. The Land Registry API is free. I'm telling you these costs, guys. This is how we keep CashCalc very keenly priced, because behind the scenes, I'm saying, no, I'm not paying £2.5 grand, I'm paying 35 quid. And I'm going to use the free APIs provided by the government. But what we're doing now, you can see, is that the client has said, yep, that is my current value. So we've even given them the annualized growth of that asset they've owned. and that applies to their home, commercial property, buy-to-lets. So do you remember I said to you earlier, we don't want to annoy your client, or we don't want to help you annoy your client. We want to delight your client, but because they clicked on your secure portal, your fact find, we want you to delight your client using this software. So hopefully this is just an example, and just on something as simple as, can you put your address in, how we've done date you moved in, values, assets, liabilities, just by one question and one postcode. And we follow that through in everything to do with the onboarding of the client. One thing we switched on just over a year ago, about 18 months ago now, I did my training to join financial services, the Wesleyan in general in Birmingham. And, they trained me at the time to do PIPSI or Pepsi, protection, earnings, pension, saving, investment. Don't go and sell a PEP or an ISA if the client hasn't got their basic life and critical illness. The widow's not going to thank you that their £100 a month has gone up from 1,200 to 1,500 if they're widowed and they had no life insurance. And we could have done a £30 life insurance and a £70 ISA. So to help you and to help your client, I thought we'd try some nudges within CashCalc. So what I mean by nudges is the client have said, look, I've got a mortgage earlier in the fact find, or I've got dependent children in the fact find. But when they get to the health or protection section, they've said, no, I haven't got any life insurance. We just pop up and say, look, you said you've got no life insurance, but you have got children. Would you like to talk to your advisor about this? And it's not in your face. And as you can see on there, they can either create an objective or dismiss it. So last year, we had just under 36,000 objectives created by clients within CashCalc. So that means that nearly 36,000 times something popped up in a fact find where the advisor has been asked by the client, can you talk to me about life or kick or writing a will or doing power of attorney, because we nudge on those 4 areas. And hopefully it's helping you give a great service to your client, maybe earn a bit more money and avoid that difficult conversation with a widow in the future. And the only reason I'm showing integration under discussion, whilst this is a client view, the client don't see the pipeline. I put that on just for this presentation. We're talking to iPipeline now and say, look, guys, if we do this, can we build an integration? We can send the data, or the advisor can send the data straight across and get some quotes straight off here. So I'm just trying to do quick buttons to save you 5 minutes here and there. So let's assume we've done the fact find now. What you can do, I said you could have disclosure documents, you can have other ones. Aptitude to risk questionnaire. This is not compulsory that you do an aptitude to risk questionnaire under the FCA rules, but most of us seem to use questionnaires to help us identify the client's attitude to investment risk. And it's always been an aim of mine within CashCalc to embed or bring in links to your Phenometricas, Oxford Risk, DT, etc. So when I joined FE, I said I wanted to do this. And we are working on doing that, and we're talking to these people to bring them all in. But they actually said, look, we've got a great relationship with eValue. We've been working with them for years. Why don't we talk to them about bringing their data in? We did. We had the conversation, and eValue's data has now been, or their questions have been brought within CashCalc, and we branded them up with you, your branding, your company name. So built within CashCalc, you've now got access to a full attitude to risk questionnaire with 13 questions initially, plus 5 questions in capacity for loss and another 2 of knowledge and experience. So if you guys are currently using an attitude to risk questionnaire and maybe not quite getting the engagement you want from the client and you look at it changing, have a look at this. It's now embedded within CashCalc. And the great thing is, which I'm delighted about FE, we have to pay eValue for all of this data to bring in, and we agreed that we weren't going to pass on that cost to you guys at all. It's not a separate modular price. If you're paying a license fee to CashCalc, then you've got access to this at no extra cost. So please have a look at it and consider using it, guys, because I've negotiated it, thrown in at no cost for you guys. So I need you to at least have a look at it, so FE know that I know what I'm talking about. So the attitude risk questionnaire, dead easy for the client to use. There's the 13 questions there, and the client will just select the one which is appropriate to them. Now, as well as being a chartered financial planner, I'm also a client. I don't give myself advice. One of the other chartered financial planners at Niche is my advisor and gives me advice, and my wife. So I filled in attitude risk questionnaires myself, and my wife has. And whilst we don't mind doing it, we do the questions, which is great. Normally, when we can press submit, it just goes off and there's a big thank you on screen. And as a client, I'm like, yeah, so what am I then? I've just answered all these questions. I'm intrigued to know what I am, but generally we don't get any feedback. So when I agreed to bring the eValue stuff in, I said, right, we have to give the client feedback immediately, there and then. So as soon as the client presses submit, you get an automated email as the advisor to say, Bob Jones has just completed his attitude to risk questionnaire. This is what the client sees. So in this case, on the scale we've got, they become a 4 out of 5. There's a description there that they're moderate to adventurous, and there's a nice paragraph describing where they are. And does this sound like you? And there's a suggested asset allocation list. But as you guys know, this is just a prompt for you to have a conversation. So when you do have a conversation with the client and say, look, I saw you answer these questions, you could probe them because question 2 seemed to conflict with something else. And when you discussed it through with the client, you agreed with the client that they were probably a 3, not a 4, and you've changed it there and then. So what you've now got is great engagement with the client, a great record that they've done these questions themselves, and a lovely record that you've had a conversation and actually tweaked it following that conversation. Now, having done that within CashCalc with Attitude Risk Questionnaire, what you can do if you want, and you don't have to, if you're then going to go in and build a cash flow plan for the clients, you could actually utilize funds which are only appropriate for their particular attitude risk. If I draw you right to the dead center of this screen, you'll see a little toggle button below the preview button, which says only show risk level 3, and that's switched on at the moment. But if you wanted to go toggle that off, but in this case, we've toggled it on, so you can see in the drop down, there's only risk level 3 ones popped up. So, we're just, if you've got a list of 60 different funds or MPSs you use, you could just shorten your list whilst you're working with that client. Now on the right hand side, what that will do then, because the data is already in there, when you do your projections for the client, the projections used are going to be the actual past performance of that fund or MPS that you've chosen. Okay, moving on to another area of CashCalc which we've been developing, which is the sustainable investing questionnaire. My marketing team, when I told them I was running this webinar, said, oh, you can't show the SIQ yet because it's not live. Yeah, so obviously I ignored that and I put it in there anyway. Because this is about to go live in the next fortnight, and I thought, well, if I'm doing a webinar to several hundred of you, let's just tell you what's coming imminently. So I think ESG and ethical views are going to become much more important in our conversations with clients going forward. And rather than just say to a client, oh, are you ethically minded? Do you not? Do you want this and do you want that? This sustainable investing questionnaire is much more about how you live in your life now. Like this morning when I got up, the first thing I did at 7 o'clock was to put my recycling out before the recycling comes to collect it. So I'm quite an avid recycler. I don't have an electric vehicle, I don't have solar panels on the roof. But this sort of questionnaire looks at your client about how they're currently living their life now. So it's not a case of, are you ethical, are you not? It's more a case of what they're doing. And then what that would then enable you to generate is where they are on a very, very light green through to a dark green with their views. And it helps you then tailor a portfolio which actually meets the needs of the client and the things which are important to them. So that'll come in very shortly, guys. And when it's switched on, I'd love you to use it, and I'd love you to give us some feedback on it, either feedback that you love it and it's great, or you love it and let's improve it. And if you hate it, tell us and we'll work on it. Okay, so hopefully what we've shown you there is that you can really engage with the client through the process. And what I've shown you is literally just the fact find and a couple of the questionnaires. But what we've built in CashCalc is a portal where you can securely communicate with the client. And you might be sitting there thinking, my client won't use a portal. They will. They definitely will, guys. Honestly, and let me just give you me as an example. I've used eBay for several years, and when I go onto eBay, I put my username and password in. I'm in their portal. They just don't call it a portal. I just log on. I think I'm just logging onto their website, but really they're taking me into their secure portal, aren't they? And then if I buy something on eBay and I pay with my PayPal account, I log into my PayPal account with my username and my password. And that's another portal. They just don't call it a portal. So clients will just log onto your website to securely communicate with you. But what we can do as things evolve, eBay and PayPal used to be separate companies. So you'd have separate username, separate password. Now they're owned by eBay, still got separate username and password, but they've just done seamless link across. So you can be within eBay and just press a button and it links you across, and it saves and encrypts your username and password, because if you've already gone into the one, it's nice and safe. So what they're doing is they're pulling things together and making it seamless for me as the user. That's what we're trying to do with you communicating with the client. And we're just giving you the tools to do that. So within your portal, you can exchange disclosure documents with them, which which we've already mentioned earlier. You can use custom links, and I'll talk about them in a minute. In addition to your disclosure documents, you could just exchange documents securely. And COVID taught us that sometimes we need the client to sign something and send it back, and they couldn't even leave the house to go to the letterbox. So, and why should they? We've all got smartphones now. If you need a copy of their bank statement, bang like that, and then just upload it, and you can securely communicate with the client through Messenger. I'm going to touch on LOAs and maybe a bit of AML as well. So let's look at disclosure documents. And actually, that document you're looking at there is the niche welcome brochure, and it's the fees section of it. So you can actually say, well, this document I'm always going to give to all clients. So you can save that as one of your disclosure documents, so it's always there available. So it's not like every client you've got to upload the same 3 things. So you can have it and say, well, look, every time I open it, that one's in there. What you can see then in there's a box with green writing on it. And what that is the fee agreement has been digitally signed and accepted by the client. Now, many of you will be aware of DocuSign and Adobe Sign, HelloSign, etc. But what makes a document legally digitally signed? There's 6 items, and you can see them there. Name, date, time, email address, IP address, and the browser used. And if you capture those 6 bits of information, then the document is legally signed. So it doesn't actually need a physical squiggle or some sloping italic font to make it legal. Although some providers do want that. So when we built CashCalc, we said for things like disclosure documents and simple things, why don't we just build a digital acceptance? There's a record that it's been done without having to go to the expense of having a separate license fee for DocuSign, etc. So that's available now, guys, as your disclosure documents. LOAs. Oh, why do we put up with LOAs? Okay, so we come across a client and they say it's with, I'm not going to say even insurance company names, but you already know all of the names. And you're going to have problems straight away because you're going to get the client a wet sign, you're going to send it off, you're not going to hear anything for 3 weeks, and then you're going to chase it up. It's a pain. How can we improve it? Okay, that's a big problem. But what I've been able to do just a tiny bit, we already know you, we know your address, we know your FCA number, we know your client's name, address, date of birth, national insurance number. They've told us they've got Aviva pension. So we can just bring that and mail merge it all into one document because we've already got it in our system. So if the client has said, I've got an Aviva pension, when you're on the pension section, there's an option to say, produce me an LOA. And if you press that, it just mail merges it all into one document for you. What you can do then is upload that to your DocuSign and then either email it or send it by secure document exchange with us. Send a secure message and say, client, can you just DocuSign this? Or can you print this off, wet sign it? Because all providers want something different. And there's a power planner up country called Debbie Conlon, and she's done some great work. She's identified there's about 68 providers out there, and they all want different things. I think there's about 25, 26 of them will accept DocuSign. There's 20 odd of them that will accept a wet signed document, which has then been scanned or emailed. There's 3 that want to be faxed. So there's a link on our LOA page to Debbie's website because she updates this every 2 or 3 months. And you can say, right, Aviva, you can click on it, look at it, go to Aviva and say, they've got a central email address and they'll accept a wet signed scanned copy. Now, if that's the case, then you can just, this LOA we've produced, send it to the client in the secure portal, put a quick secure message saying that, can you print it off, wet sign it, take a picture of it with your iPhone or smartphone, and then send it back to me. That's turned around by the client in a couple of hours, and then you can email it to the Aviva central email address. I know I've not fixed the LOA problem, but I've just saved you 5, 10, 15 minutes. And if I can do that in lots of different areas, guys, then great. Every month we're having about 720 LOAs produced in CashCalc. So we're not saving the world here, but we're saving about 60 hours every month for advisors. AML. So again, COVID showed us that actually it's quite difficult sometimes to get the client to come in with their passport and their driver license, etc. And we think that's free because we're not spending any money, but it's not free because we got time or our colleagues' time to sit with the client and photocopy it and do all the rest of it. So there's lots of anti-money laundering providers out there who do it all digitally. There's a great one in Cardiff, just down the road from me, called Credas. So I spoke to them, and what we've done is done a one button from us to them. So we're not doing anti-money laundering, but we've said to them, look, we've got thousands of users, give us a great price and we'll just pass it on. So they give us a buy-in price and we're able to pass that on to you guys for £3.20 for a check. No minimum sign up. You can literally come on, do one check, cost you £3.20. Now, if loads of advisors around the country use that more, I know I can get that down to about £2.50, £2.40 by saying to Creda, come on, give it to me cheaper and pass it on. So, you know, there's an opportunity to utilize this to drive prices down. One of the things I've been talking to my team about here is actually saying to you, if you're, for example, a one-man IFA and you've got 100 clients, we could say, well, look, we know roughly how many AMLs you're going to do. We'll give you unlimited checks for 10 quid a month, something like that, right? And that's something we've just talked about. So if you're interested in that, send an email after this to info@cashcalc and say, look, really like the idea of unlimited, no contracts, 10 quid a month or 15 quid a month, depending on the size of your business. And, you know, we'll take the risk because the first month you might do 40 checks, but then you might not do hardly any for the rest of the year. And we know it's going to even out. And it enables you to think, right, my AML sorted for 20 quid a month, whatever it is. Okay. So have the conversation with those guys and we're happy to do that if it enables you to reduce risk and have a nice repeatable process and saves you time. If you do the Credas, I personally like it, really fantastic. If the client has the Credas app and just downloads it, which they can do, and they've got one of these biometric passports, they can literally just go passport, smartphone, digitally reads it, don't even have to take a photograph. It digitally swaps the information from the chip to the app and it uploads it. It's cool. We're not going to try and build that, but we're just going to open it up to you. Very happy to integrate with other providers, you know, Safe Search, Smart Search, whatever. If you want us to do that, email info@cashcalc, and I'll just say I'll approach these people and say, look, do you want to come in and have buttons within there? Okay, secure messaging. Oh, I think this is fabulous. What you can see on the left-hand side of the screen there is Secure Portal. There's an app. So CashCalc has its own app. I didn't want to write CashCalc on it. I wanted your name on it. So ideally, when I spoke to my team about this, I said, oh no, I want to be able to brand. Everybody brands it ABC. Actually, that can't be done because we have to set up an actual shop with Apple and Android. So we'd have to set up 5,000, 10,000 shops. So what we've done is we've made it as non-CashCalc as possible. So it just says Secure Portal with a little C in the corner, and your client can download that app. You can download that app, and they can just securely communicate with the client. Certainly, at my iframe firm niche, that's how, in general, we communicate with clients. So as long as the client's used to using WhatsApp or you know, Facebook Messenger or something of that nature, they can literally just message you back and forth. And as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, some examples of John having a conversation with Sol, you know, about something to do. Really, really, really easy. So if your client's got a smartphone, they either have fingerprint recognition or facial recognition, so they haven't even remembered their username and password. They can literally just open your app. They can look at it. Soon as the app opens, they see your branding all over it. And then there's a message then saying, you know, your advisor sent you a message. They click on it and it says, you know, can you send me a copy of your bank statement or whatever? And you can have a conversation back and forth. Brilliant, guys. What you can do is you could go into the settings and say, well, look, I'm always with clients. I want my power planner administrator to do it. That's fine. So when the client sends you a message, it'll appear on your phone as a notification, and whoever you've asked, your administrator or your power planner, can have the message as well, and they can reply on your behalf. Really cool way of doing, guys. It's all included in the standard subscription price to CashCalc. Why am I doing all of this? Okay. I just want to save you and me 5 minutes here and there. And there's a great story about why I did that. One of my marketing team, when he did a journalism degree in Cardiff, he worked at McDonald's to have some money as he went through university. And when he came to work for me, he told me a story about something McDonald's did. And their biggest selling product was a Big Mac. So he said they actually moved the button on the till of the Big Mac from the middle to the top. And I said, why did they do that? And they said, so when the McDonald's employee takes the order, they look at the till and press the button. But actually, they know that the most common one is the top button, so they didn't even need to look at it. And they worked out that it saved in maybe a second or so every order, and they made millions more profit by just being that little bit more efficient. I can't guarantee I'll make you millions more profit, guys, but I can save you 5 minutes here and 10 minutes on an LOA and 5 minutes on sending a message rather than an email, okay? Trying to make it much more efficient for you, but also engaging your client in the process. They're part of the journey with you. Right, I've gone on to custom links now. So what are custom links? These are brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And these are included as a direct result of feedback from our advisors, because this is not my idea, this is somebody else's idea. So I said to you earlier about secure digital sign and accepting, and it's not a squiggle. This particular firm used a digital signature. And they said, well, look, we use a digital signature and we still want to send it to the client. Yeah, cool. So they go onto their digital signature provider like DocuSign or HelloSign, generate the document, and then email the client a link. And they said, well, can I put that link within the portal? So we created custom links. So you can put any link within the CashCalc portal or your portal. So you can create the document in DocuSign, paste the link in, send a secure message to the client saying, can you sign this document? As they then facial recognition open up your app, they go into the secure portal, there's a message from you saying, can you sign this? They click on it, and it takes them to DocuSign, digitally sign it, done. And that's what you can do with secure custom links. So the example there at the top is a YouTube link, and that could be a YouTube link of your company. This is how we work with clients. Could be anything. Could be explain anything. There's a Dropbox link. If you don't want to use the inbuilt eValue and you're still using Phenometrica, you can actually link across to your Phenometrica questionnaire there, or your Oxford Risk. And interestingly, can you see on the left-hand side, all of the icons next to each one of them are the real icons? And again, this is just a small point of CashCalc. There's a space for you to type in or paste in the link, but you could accidentally paste an incorrect link, and you could have put, bbc.co.ak instead of UK, and you might not have even noticed this. So you've now sent the client a broken link, and that would be really, really frustrating. So the first thing we do, as soon as you type a link in, we bounce a request to that website. And if it's a correct link, we give a green tick and says this is a good link. And if it isn't, we put an X in to say this is a broken link. So you know straight away. And if it's a good link, whilst we're bouncing a message, we bring back their icon and we store the icon next to it. So when you're asking your client to click on a link, they can see they're linking to a specific place with that icon. It's all about the attention to detail, guys, and try and make you look really, really cool with your clients, okay? Another little thing we've included, which is client tags. And again, this was a direct result of our users. They said, look, we're adding lots of clients with you, Ray. They've got all of their pensions, and a lot of their pensions are with Vanguard. And we want to be able to write to those clients, but we just want to write to the pension Vanguard clients. We don't want to write to the clients with mortgages or whatever. So we've added tags now within CashCalc. So as you enter a client with a pension automatically creates a tag. So your client might have 10 different tags. So you can then say, right, I want to write a letter to all my mortgage holders, and their mortgage is expiring in January. And then it'll just give you a list. So if you've got 100 clients, it'll just say, oh, you've got 20 of these. And as you can see then at the bottom, you can do a bit of functionality with them. So you've got export as a CSV, so you could pull that list out and do something with it. Or you can send them a document. So let's say, for example, you're doing the pension Vanguard clients, and you've just had a lovely document from Vanguard, which is really good. You might say, I'm going to send all of my clients this update from Vanguard. I think is really, really useful. And you could literally just say, right, send it to all of these 25 clients, or in this case, 3 clients. I'm going to send all 3 of them this document. Bang, does it in one go, one hit. Trying to save you 5 minutes, guys. So once you've got this client information in, you've got the fact find, you've got all of this, they've given you copies of that, you probably use a back office system as well. Your IOs, your X plans, your Curo, et cetera, et cetera. So when it's in CashCalc, you can use a client information page with us if you want. So in the bottom right-hand corner, if you use Trello, you can add that. So any little things that you do, if you've made notes, you can do that. Or if you want to, you can just integrate with one of your other back office providers or any other provider. So in a perfect world, you just onboard to the client, they do the work, push the data to Wealthcraft as your back office provider. And we're saving you time and syncing the data between 2 systems. So people say to me, oh, I hate rekeying. I only want to key things once. I don't want you to key at all. So I don't want you to rekey. I don't want you to single key. Because if you send the link to the client, let them do the keying, let them put the data in. You just look at it and say, yeah, and then you press a button syncing it somewhere else. And at the bottom, they've got some integrations we're currently working on. Bottom left is I'm still embarrassed about that, guys. I joined FE Fund Info over 16, 17 months ago, and the first thing I wanted to do was an integration. It's just turned out to be just more work and more difficult connecting them. But we are working on it, and we're getting to the tail end of that work now. And I think I can confidently say before the end of the year, we'll have a brilliant integration between CashCalc and FE Analytics. So if I'll tell you all the great things, but I'll also tell you when I've been a bit slower than I'd like to have been. So sorry about that, guys. So I said about integrations, unless in the interest of fairness, I've mentioned Curo, I've mentioned Wealthcraft. Let's mention a little back office called IntelliFlow. So let's say, for example, you use IntelliFlow. You can see here now, John Smith, you've got the data in CashCalc, but he's actually not linked to your back office yet. So what you can do is you can sync it to your back office. So if I draw your eye to the left-hand side, you can see contact methods has got a little 2 next to it. So that means 2 bits of data you've got within CashCalc is different than what's in IO. Because yeah, what I should have said is as soon as you switch the sync integration on, there's an immediate live API between them. They bounce the information and say, hey, what have you got? What have you got? And at this point, it says, we've got most of the same information, but in contacts methods, there's 2 bits of information which conflict. In investments, there's 1, incomes 2, et cetera, et cetera. So what you can then do is click next, and you'll go through those sections where there's a bit of conflicting information. So you can see there on this one, the email address doesn't match up. So what you can do is you can match up the email address and you can decide which is the latest one. Next one is mobile phone. So you could look at it and say, client's clearly got a different mobile phone because they put a different mobile phone in to the fact find they've just done. So you can then decide which one you want. And then once you've done that, you can see they're then fully linked between each other. Wow, having done all of that, you can finally build a cash flow. So you probably came on here and thought, I'm going to go on a webinar with Ray at CashCalc to do a cash flow plan. What we've done is digitally onboarded the client, digitally engaged with the client. If you want to build a cash flow, I'll run some other webinars on that, and I'll send some dates out, and we'll do some master classes on doing cash flows with clients. But let's assume you've done a cash flow and the client says, yep, I'm going to consolidate those 3 pensions and I'm going to stick them all with you in that place you recommend. What people are doing then, IFAs are doing then, they're then going and saying, right, I'm now going to stick this into Transact, Aviva, Fidelity or whatever, and you're rekeying it into those places. Go back to what I said just a few minutes ago. I don't want you to rekey anything. So what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to speak to the next stage and say, hey guys, do you want to come and talk to me? Now, a lot of the big providers are saying, oh, shut up, okay, and they're not talking to me. So I thought, okay, I'll talk to the challenger platforms for now. So Fundment is the first one I've spoken to, and I said, look, do you want to do a link? And they said, yeah, I'd love to, Ray. So what we've done is we've built an integration with Fundment. We're talking to the other providers behind the scenes. So the client says to you, look, I want to invest. So within CashCalc, you've got an invest button. You press invest, and what I'd love to have then is a page of all of the main platforms who are happy to work with us. But at the moment on that page, you've got Fundment. So if you click on Fundment and it's the first time you've ever used them, we'll say, look, can you talk to Fundment and set up an agency? Assuming you've already got an agency, and it's the first time, look, we need to use name and password, and let's encrypt that so you can do a single sign-on. And then but assuming you've already used Fundment, you can get to the investment page, you can click Fundment. It immediately then says, here's your client, John Smith. Let's have a look first of all in Fundment if there's a John Smith, and we automate a search to see if the client's already in John Smith, already in Fundment. Because the last thing you want to do is duplicate clients on the platform, because then you're compromising your data quality, and that's nonsense. So first thing we say is John Smith already in Fundment? No, he's not. Do you want to create him as a new client? Yes, please. Boom. Name, date of birth, national insurance number, address. We send it across, and we've now created the client in Fundment. What you've now got is you've got a tab open saying CashCalc, you've got a tab open saying Fundment. And all we've done is taken you to about page 5. So we've just saved you a bit of rekeying. We haven't saved you hours and hours and hours, but we've saved you a bit of time and we've minimized errors. But what we are doing is we're talking to Fundment and other providers to say, right, can we now bring back full transactional history? Because when I go back and do my review with the client in the future, it takes me 3, 4, 5 hours to do a review pack. And a lot of that time is spent looking at full transactional history so I can get the custody costs, investment costs, and advisory costs. So we're looking at bringing that back so you can produce that information in 5 minutes. So watch this space with the next stage. So if there's any providers that you want us to do this with, guys, send them an email, CC in info@CashCalc and say, hey guys, can you talk to each other? I'd love to get you single sign-on with CashCalc. And I'm done, guys. I've got 5 minutes left, so I think my timing was about right. Sal, I'll give you a few seconds to wake up and put your cup of tea down.
Hi.
If you're listening, have we had any questions, Sal?
Hi. Yes, Ray. Thank you. I'll start actually by the end, because you've just ended with fundment, and you've just said that if you guys, the advisors, there are some other providers you want to see in there, which you know that you want to see. I think if that can be displayed, if not, is there any discussion at the moment with Transact? We know it's one of the main ones. I'm not sure if we can display that yet, if there is anything, of course.
I'll find out if we're talking to Transact, and if we're not, we'll have a conversation then, guys.
Okay, cool.
But if you send them an email saying you want it, and if there's 40 of you listening and suddenly Transact get 40 emails off you and you CC me in, when I pick up the phone and say, hey, Transact, run a conversation, they say, yes, please, I've had 40 emails about this.
Yeah, that's ideally what we want to do. I will need to share my screen. There's been some questions about the LOA. So if that's okay, I'll just try. Okay, I just hope I'm on the right one. If someone can confirm. Yeah, okay. Fantastic. So if I go to any of my clients, sorry, I've got a few windows that are bothering me, bear with me. So if I go to any of my clients for the LOA, so what Ray has shown is that you fill in your client fills in the fact find. All this information is saved into what we call the client information page. So what I've done in the background, I've just very quickly added a pension of 200K. And this is where you can print your letter of authority. It's right here on the client information page of that client. And what Ray was mentioning with the very kind power planner who's done it all, I've forgotten her name.
Debbie,
thank you. So this is where you can download the list of platforms and providers she's made public for everyone. So once you click here, so hopefully you can see that new page now with her website. This is where you can download the LOA guide. So that's as simple as that. For the other questions, I had an interesting one. What if I create a client and they suddenly get married, for example, and I need to add a spouse? How do I do this? So if Mike is single here, my Mike, I could simply edit Mike here at the very top with the blue hyperlink. And when I do that, I simply need to tick the include partner or spouse. And this is where I can fill in the partner's name, date of birth, etc. Obviously later in the fact find. So I'm just, there are questions that are coming through while I'm talking, so bear with me. Oh, someone, yeah, sorry, crack on, no, crack on.
Well, while Sol is doing that, if you're sitting there thinking, will clients do that? Let me give you some boring stats, guys. Last year, we had 109,000 houses where they sat down with their advisor and went through a cash flow plan last year. 109,000 houses, about 1/3 cash flows. So each house did about 3 cash flows. So I'd like to think, current situation, this is what I'm recommending you, and there's a bit of a stress test. So 109,000 houses. Of those 109,000 houses, 69,000 of them did a digital fact find, either themselves or jointly with their advisor. 69,000 houses. Of the 69,000, 30,000 of the houses did it all by themselves. So the client the advisor sent them a link, and they just filled all the fact finding, and it came back and said, it's done. 30,000 times. And remember, I said to you earlier, of that, about 3,600 of those houses self-onboarded and did the fact find themselves. So clients will do it. They'll do it in the evening, when one party's watching Emmerdale and think, I'm bored of this, they're doing the fact find. And if we can make it nice and engaging, they're doing it when it's a time convenient to them. So honestly, guys, it will make you more efficient, and clients will love it. Sorry, Sal, back to you.
Wow, that's great. I've had a question about a development we've done last week, I think. We've got an advisor here who works with overseas clients. So when we send the invitation, like you've shown, Ray, so if I go back on that page, we send a PIN for security purposes. So your client can access the portal securely. And it's true that I think we've forgotten to add some countries within the list. So this has been allowed. So we should have, I'm not going to say all, just in case, but we should have a lot of countries now. That's been since last week. But if we don't, and let's say it's a matter of emergency, you can always copy the link, and the verification method will not be a PIN we send. It's simply, for example, a phone number to verify. So that's the alternative instead of CashCalc sending an email and a PIN to your client.
That's brilliant. This system is brilliant. I've forgotten how good it is.
There is one more. I appreciate it's one past, but I think it's an important one. I've had many other questions. Hopefully I can answer them a little bit later. Someone asked us about our ATR and how we create risk models. So if I just go back on the dashboard, so everyone's with me and the newbies as well, when you log into CashCalc, you're here, you're on that dashboard. And at the top right, you've got the settings. That's a fantastic section. This is where you can customize your portal, set up your integrations, to check your account security, etc. And we've got a section called investment proposition. So if I go into the risk profile of this one here, you will see that I have imported the eValue ones. Appreciate that not all of you are working with eValue, but that's been our first integration with an ATR provider. So these are all in, all the risk profile up to 5. So for example, like Ray mentioned with the link section, if you work with Dynamic Planner, you can create your own risk profile. So here I've created a dummy one with a risk profile 7. You put the description, you create the asset allocation, and then we give you a historical growth rate, for which you can change the average if you wish to. And what's fantastic with that is that you can link all your charges, link a different variable template, and even a different asset allocation template to run your cash flow modeler or your Monte Carlo for stochastic. So it's what I always tell my clients is that if you don't use eValue, definitely spend some time on this. It's going to take you some time in the setup, creating all the asset allocation and the mapping. But once you do that, guys, for every cash flow modeler, for every client, it's saving you minutes. We're not talking seconds anymore, we're talking minutes. So definitely take a look.
Yeah, and the whole setup shouldn't take, like you said, it'll take you some time. You might have to give an hour of your time if you sit and build your own. So if you're already using an ATR provider elsewhere, you just copy and paste their descriptions. So where it says description, then you put test. You just copy the description of a moderate to adventurous and paste it in it. It'll take you less than an hour to set it up if you don't use eValue, and then it's always there, and you're going to save 5-10 minutes every time. So I'll try and save you 5 minutes, but sometimes you might have to save the 5 minutes yourself, guys. Any other questions, Sol, or are we done?
Yeah, there are some questions that I would probably rather answer privately because I don't think that's going to be useful for all the attendees. And then we 5 past, so I think.
Shall we let everybody go then, and we'll call it a day today. I'm running another seminar Tuesday, guys. Exactly the same one. Webinar. I'm running exactly the same webinar Tuesday. So if you've got a colleague that you want to watch that, then just ask them to sign in next Tuesday.
Okay, great. Well, Connor will end the webinar now. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining.